the belief of panpsychism is that the base reality of the entire universe is a field of consciousness. And that field of consciousness permeates everything. We are conscious. Our brains are just radio antenna that are picking up the consciousness. And that when we die, we just stop transmitting the consciousness. But the consciousness is always there. We are actually the consciousness, but we're just transmitting it through this receiver, this meat body. All right, bro, are you ready to do this today?
Yeah, sure. What are we doing?
Today, we are talking about one of my favorite topics, simulation theory. And I cannot tell you how excited I was when I first heard, I think it was Nick Bostrom, who is the philosopher, and he came up with this really kind of a basic theory that said, if A, then B, then C, we're living in a simulation. So that's what we're going to dive into today. Let's do it.
Yeah, 100%. When I texted you earlier, I was telling you that I was listening to I don't know if it's the most recent, but a few episodes recently on Rogan, and he's got like an Indian guy. I don't know what his name was, but he's like a video game, former video game developer / computer scientist. And they were going deep into this, and it's pretty mind-bending, man. It's pretty mind-bending.
Yeah, I mean, it's very mind-bending. So let's go over what Nick Bostrom basically said. And the paper that he put out was, he said, listen, first of all, do you believe that our current technology is going to advance such that eventually, whether it's next year, 100 years, 1,000 years, or 10,000 years, do you believe that we will develop technology and advance technology to such an extent that when we enter into, let's say, virtual reality, whatever you want to call it, will it be indistinguishable from reality? Actually, and so that was the first prong of the logical thesis. And then if the answer is yes, that we will develop that technology, if you believe that, whenever it is, then the next question is, well, do you think that when we are able to create a simulation that is indistinguishable from reality, do you believe that we will use it to recreate the past to get a better understanding of what life was like, right? And if you believe A and you believe B, and the reasons for wanting to recreate the past are, we are enamored with history, right? History is like as human beings, it's one of our favorite intellectual pursuits. What was it like? Let's go back to when I was just in Italy, going back to Rome and visiting the Colosseum, going to Japan, seeing what it was like to live as a samurai. As human beings, we want to know that. What was it like on the day to be able to be there? There was a great sci-fi show called Devs, and it was developed by Alex Garland, who wrote and directed Ex Machina. And in
That's
Devs,
a great movie.
Devs, yeah, Ex Machina to me is probably the greatest sci-fi movie ever made. I'm not saying a lot. But the cool thing about Devs was in the series is so good. I feel like it kind of slid under the radar. But in the series, they developed a technology, like an AI technology, where they could recreate the past. Wow. And you could experience it. And so in this recreation, when they went in like this quantum like cube, they recreated the day and the moment that Jesus was crucified. And so, right? I mean, really, those are the kind of things where, you know, if you think about history, you're like, dude, I want to see that. I want to go back to that moment. I want to go back to the Sermon on the Mount. I want to go back and meet Buddha and sit with Buddha. I want to see what he was thinking, right? So
to really get access to, like, you know, not the intellect, because like we're operating in the modern world on interpretations of those events, but like interpretation of those events have morphed into governing bodies of reality. And like to be able to go back and like actually be there, that would change everything, because then it would no longer be institutions built out of interpretation. It would be firsthand accounts, and you'd be able to kind of separate, you know, all of it into like perspective versus fact. That, I mean, that's mind blowing in and of itself.
Yeah, because, you know, ultimately what we're doing is we're drinking the water, so to speak, but we're drinking the wine. Let's use an apt pun, you know, but we're drinking the wine, and it is so diluted. Yes. Right? But if we could go back and we could drink from the source, it's like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing, right? So you get to go back and you get to sit with Confucius, you get to sit with, you know, Buddha, you get to sit with Jesus. Dude, how about going back and sitting with Einstein when he's like as a postal clerk and starting to figure out relativity, and just asking him questions, even if I don't understand the math, you know? So if you believe A, right, do you believe that we're going to develop this technology? 10,000 years, yeah, if we survive, then yes, we're going to develop it. Because, you know, look at the AR headset that I have right now. When they first started developing VR, it was so clunky and so bad. And this VR headset, the MetaQuest 3 that I have, is $499, and it is mind-blowing how amazing it is. And next year, they're probably going to have a better one for the same price.
Yeah.
Vision Pro, right? I've spent a lot of time in the Vision Pro. Amazing. But the Vision Pro is probably the worst iteration of the Vision Pro that we're going to see. There will be a better one, and there will be. So as we progress, it becomes more and more and more immersive. Elon Musk's company Neuralink is now implanting, you know, sensors in the brain. Before you know it, you know, we'll be able to experience VR without a headset.
That's scary, man. That's scary.
I know.
That's like that's like crossing the Rubicon right there. You know what I mean? Like once it goes inside your head, I don't think there's any coming back from that. I think that's like the tipping point of like the species.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, probably one of the problems with VR right now, because I've had quite a few VR headsets. I've had the PlayStation Vision Pro, Vision, whatever the heck it is, PSVR. And one of the problems with the PSVR was, believe it or not, for games, was that, and even for this thing, I don't use this thing for games because gaming is too intense. Yeah. So you're playing a game and you're sweating, right? Your body's like, you're all in fight or flight. I mean, I could only take that for like 15, 20 minutes. And then I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm dying right now.
Yeah.
So
I sometimes like playing like a controller, like with the haptic responses, like even that will burn me out like a little bit. Like, you know, if I'm into something that's like really intense and like the haptic shocks that are coming at you through your hands, like that sometimes is like, all right, I gotta stop. I'm gonna have a heart attack.
It's insane, right? I mean, video games are becoming like that good.
But what is the haptic thing? Is the haptic thing like? Is it some sort of like mind control that like they're like beta testing? Like what is it?
No,
is that
no.
like
What happened?
Pavlovian?
what haptic means, like the PS5, the PlayStation 5 controllers have haptic feedback. It's just a
Yeah.
vibrational feedback that mimics, that the programmers can mimic, like in the game. Like right now I'm playing this is what a video game fanatic I am. Right now I'm playing a game called Cyberpunk 2077. Keanu Reeves is like one of the cameo stars in it. And
Okay.
it released a couple of years ago, but it was really buggy and bad, but now it's amazing. And so if you're holding the controller and you're driving the car and you're accelerating, you will get like a haptic, like resistance.
to like,
and the whole thing's rumbling and it's,
Yeah.
So that's what haptic feedback is.
They're beta testing the takeover with that shit. But this is a good way into, so the dude that was on Rogan, and you'll appreciate this on the video game level. I don't know why I'm shaking my finger like that. I'm getting excited. It's the New York coming out. But he was saying that like he wrote a book and he's kind of got like two versions of the simulation theory. Like one of them is like where it's the NPC theory, to where like we're all on some level NPCs. Like non-playable. We're all NPCs and we don't know, like there's no real free will, or there's no. And then the other version was like the RPG, where like you're kind of playing into the script as you go, and there's variability different from the NPC version. And I mean, I'm probably doing a horrible job of even explaining that, but he was going into how he's worked it out to two versions of what it could potentially be. And then he went into that thing about the cat. You know what I'm talking about? There's like somebody's cat.
Schrödinger's cat.
Yeah. And I'm like, what is he talking about with the cat, man?
Well, that's physics. That's about superposition in physics. We'll go into that, but so those are the two prongs of Nick Bostrom's philosophy behind Are We in a Simulation? And so he said, if you believe that, number one, we are going to develop this technology at some point, and number two, if you believe that we will use this technology to recreate the past, which, again, Buddha, Jesus, whatever, Einstein, of course we are. Then if you believe that, then what that means is that you believe that future generations are going to recreate the past. And so
like it's a loop.
What they're saying is that future generations, future iterations of humanity, whatever it is, will recreate this time right here. Okay. And why would you recreate this time? Because we are living in the dawn of artificial intelligence. We are living at an inflection point at which, humanity probably will never be the same again. This is the time, before us, there was the agricultural revolution, then there was the industrial revolution, then there was the information revolution. And that was in our lifetimes. That started, 70s, 60s with computers. And now we have the internet, now we have phones, now we're developing VR and Neuralink and all these things. So we are now at an inflection point from which we will not, they're saying right now, even Elon Musk was just talking about this, but most AI scientists are like, artificial intelligence is either now more intelligent than humanity, human beings, collectively, however you want to look at it, or it soon will be. And so we're at that point. So this is the point. This is a very important time. We can infer that future generations will want to recreate this time. So then if we believe that, they're going to use this technology to recreate the past, which we would represent to them. Like a video game, imagine I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, right? One of the most popular video games ever, right? So how many times has Grand Theft Auto, which is a simulation, right? How many times has that been booted up around the world? How
Yeah,
many
probably
do you think?
probably billions.
Billions. Billions.
Billions.
So then our past will be rebooted and recreated and replayed by future generations, individual future generations, however you want to look at it, billions of times.
The video game connection is fucking a little mind blowing to me. Like, and I never really thought about. I mean, I've definitely heard of, I'm somewhat familiar with simulation theory, like the from a 30,000 foot place. But when I listen to this dude, I forget his name. I gotta look it up. When he made the video game connection, and then you making that connection to Grand Theft Auto being booted billions of times, and then it's so weird how video games are not just a kid's game. Like video games are like the next level of reality. Like it's what the fuck.
I did a little consulting with a hedge fund they were investing in some technology for video games. And I was explaining to them, they were like, you play video games? I'm like, video games are not for kids. Video games can be for kids, but the video game industry is bigger than the freaking than the movie industry. So the film industry and bigger than the music industry. Yes. And so you got to realize this is massive, massive, massive. Elon Musk is a huge video game player. So, we evolve as children. We love games. As adults, we love games too. So I started out playing, my earliest memory was playing, Pong and Atari. And then I got into programming video games with the Apple IIe, and I would program my own video games that me and my friends would play. And I've owned a console out of every iteration and generation of consoles since the Atari 2600 to the Intellivision to, any SNES.
I got one. Did you have TurboGrafx 16?
Who made because I do remember that one, but I don't know if I had that. Who made that one?
I don't remember who made it. SEC or do you remember it wasn't Sega. It wasn't Sega. No. Oh fuck! It's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue.
I remember that one. I do remember that one, but no, I never had that one.
Bonk's Adventure, the little baby with the head who just like bonked his head. You remember that? That didn't work out, He never became Mario.
That didn't become Super Mario, did it?
No. Bonk's Adventure.
The baby with the big head. That's awesome, man. So if you believe that, then we will follow the logic here, because I'm dragging it out forever. But if you believe that we will develop the technology to do it, that we will want to do it, and then we will do it billions of times like a video game, then the natural conclusion is if we will recreate this moment, this time right now, again and again and again, a billion times, what is the likelihood, the probability that we are right now in reality? Are we in base reality or are we in a simulation? The odds of us being in base reality are 1, because there's only one iteration of reality, versus the billions of recreations. So the likelihood of us being in base reality and not in a simulation is 1 billion to 1, or billions to 1, or however many iterations or reboots of the video game you think there will be. And that was his philosophy. And when that hit, people were like, especially people in the tech world got it. They were like, holy shit, he's right. Because we are progressing exponentially, like with Moore's law, with, silicon graphics and all that. and chips. But not only that, which Moore's law states that we're going to double the power and we're going to reduce the cost, double it and reduce the cost every 2 years. And so, but not only that, our ability to program is becoming greater and greater, and our immersion into into video games is becoming greater and greater every year. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's it. Crazy,
it's
huh?
Heavy. It's super
so
heavy. It
heavy.
Makes your head hurt like as you like start to think about it. He also brought up the concept of like something like if it's it's made of bits, and like everything is made up of particles, and then as they trace the particles down to the smallest of sizes, there's nothing at the end. At the end, it gets weird, and that's kind of where the concept of that this is already a running program, and that's the reason why we can't, kind of pierce through the bottom layer, because like we are in a simulation that's being run by some sort of technology that's beyond our understanding.
Well, there's no question that we are in a simulation. There is no question. There is no doubt. There is no disputing it, because
and he connected it to, sorry to cut you off. He connected it to like the religions, about how like every religion has like the promise of a new tomorrow or like a better version of reality. And he was kind of creating that as like the historical context of like this has always been part of the story. The simulation is a part of all religions, because like every religion promises a heaven or a utopia or a Valhalla, an alternate version of this current reality that you're in, trying to figure out how to get to that one. So just like how like the there's the main hero character in a lot of these religions, like the savior, there's also this recurring theme of an alternate reality. And so if there's an alternate reality, then, this is a simulated one.
Yeah, that's
it's
fascinating.
Wild.
It's fascinating. I don't know if the logic behind that is the logic behind that, well, that's indicative or points to the fact that there could be another
I think
reality.
He's just drawing parallels. I don't know.
Yeah, or does it mean that, we yearn for something beyond the idea that we will stop existing? I don't know, But so the idea then is 1,000,000,000 to 1 that we're in reality, if you accept each prong of that logical argument. And so it really set off kind of like this thing in the tech world. I think more so for people involved in tech than lay people. Many lay people were like, huh? Oh, okay, that's cool. But for people in tech, like Elon Musk and others, it became like, holy shit, man, this is crazy. There was also, Jesse, check this out. There was also a physicist, Professor Gates, and he does research on quantum physics, et cetera. And he found within quantum physics what he called error correction code that is akin to, it's like code embedded inside of our reality that is akin to computer code that is used with web browsers. And he's like, listen, this is just one more piece of information or one more clue that is pointing towards us being in a simulation. And it seems like often, because I read a lot about this stuff, is probably I get pinged, that the AI, the algorithm knows what I like. So that it seems like, we keep hitting on every month or two, I'll see a new article like, hey, there's more evidence that we're in a simulation. There's more evidence that we're in a simulation.
Yeah.
But, for me, where I like the idea of thinking that we are in a simulation, because I do. Oh, let me go back. Let me backtrack that. I said, without question, we are in a simulation. We are in a simulation because, the reality is, you just alluded to this. This right here, this video game controller it seems like it's solid, but at the quantum level, it's not solid.
It's not. It's just space,
right?
particles.
It's just space. It's just vibrations. All of our reality, everything, my watch, my hand, this controller, it's not solid. It seems solid. And in that way, it's a simulation, because the reality, this is really what physics is trying to uncover, is what is at the very base fundamental level of reality, right? At first, it seemed like it was, you look at the best way to think of it as a wall. We look at a wall, we say, okay, that's a wall. No, let's go a little deeper. Oh, that's bricks. Okay. So is the base reality of the wall bricks? No. The bricks themselves are made of sand. Okay, so sand is the base reality. No. Go deeper at the base. You have molecules of sand, right? Well, what's inside the molecules of sand, right? Then we have atoms. Then we have particles that make up the atoms. Well, what makes up the particles? Well, the particles, it looks like, are waves. They're just vibrational waves. We think of particles as fixed point in space, but at a quantum level, they're really just waves. And so then you have what is called quantum wave theory. And that holds that beneath everything are just these waves. And so in that sense, we are in a simulation. Go ahead.
So I don't know if this is a question or a thought process, but like what I struggle with most about this line of thinking, or like this school of thought, or whatever you want to call it, is it leads me down the path of like almost like nihilism, to where like if this is the case, then like it kind of feels like everything is meaningless, or like we've built our entire reality on stories based inside of a made up thing anyway. So what's the value of any of the stories? Are we just us? You know what I mean? Like it trips me up a little bit, but I can also, it trips me up, not even trips me up. It leads me down like almost like more of a negative thought process. Mm-hmm. I don't yet understand how to see the silver linings and where the beauty is in this. So enlighten me to that. If you can.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is where we start breaking everything down, and we start to understand, and I agree with you, is that so much of our society and so much of our lives are based on story. And the stories at the end of the day are bullshit. Right? It's all that's bullshit. It's all stories.
A lot of
I am Nick. Yeah. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I am, we've talked about this before this will come up again and again. It comes down to, my identity is made of stories. And stories are bullshit because they're always changing, right? I'm Nick. I wear black shirts, right? Oh, well, what if I put on a white shirt? Then that story changes, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. Well, guess what? I wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy, X amount of years ago.
Before you were.
Before I was. So that's new too.
Yeah.
So that's not real. So I'm Nick. I have, a handlebar mustache. Okay, well, I didn't always. Yep. I'm Nick. I now have a tooth. Which one is it? Which one, you know what I mean? Which one is it? Yeah. Is it, so if my identity is made out of these stories, you're married, you're not married, you have a kid, you don't have a kid, you have all of these.
And then the words are almost like the particles of the verbal reality of the story. You know what I mean? Like words are just the particles. They're like mix and match. You fucking, what are they made of? What do they mean? We keep changing that, we keep, opting in and opting out.
Yes.
Like,
I remember
like
one time.
This is called a hand, but who said that? You know what I mean? Like, why?
Yeah. The first time I did psychedelics, I did probably, 10 grams, 12 grams of mushrooms. I didn't know what I was doing. Someone gave them to me. I wanted to be like Paul Atreides in Dune. I was 18 years old. And I remember that night I was writing on a piece of paper, and I was so in another universe, and I was writing THE, and I didn't.
Yes,
I was
you
like,
told me
what
about
does it
this.
mean? What does it even mean?
Yeah.
It broke apart everything, and I think that the value of that, of psychedelics and meditation, are that they break we know neurologically they depress the default mode network in the brain, which is responsible for stories and concepts. If we take all of that away, some people go through an absolute freak out on psychedelics. And when they're
Yeah.
going through this freak out, it's because they're so attached to the story. And when the story starts to break down, they lose their minds. And so, but if you make it through that and you can learn that that's all nonsense anyways, then now we go to what is called, either in physics is called panpsychism, or in ancient meditation practices is called Advaita Vedanta, in which at the end, at the bottom, remember we were talking about what is the fundamental reality of the wall? It's not the brick, it's not the sand. What is below the wall? Well, in each grain of sand, we have atoms, then we have particles, which are just waves. What is the base of all the waves? The belief of panpsychism is that the base reality of the entire universe is a field of consciousness. And that field of consciousness permeates everything. We are conscious, our brains are just radio antenna that are picking up the consciousness. And that when we die, we just stop transmitting the consciousness. But the consciousness is always there. We are actually the consciousness, but we're just transmitting it through this receiver, this meat body that is me, right? And inside of this meat body, I have stories and I have patterns. I have subconscious patterns and stories, but none of that is real. It's always changing. So from a nihilistic perspective, I don't know. I don't know if that should give you hope that you exist forever because you are this field of consciousness that's just experiencing Jesse, which is going to be gone soon anyways and doesn't really matter and doesn't really exist anyways.
Whoa. Yeah. Dude. It's I don't even know. It's like as deep as you can actually get. Is the brain, is our brains, is that the original super technology? Is our brain like, is that is AI essentially an octave of evolution? Like, is it, you know what I mean? Like, is it just the next?
I think what you're hitting on is perhaps one of the most important concepts in understanding reality that there is. And not only understanding reality, but understanding, performance, peak performance, and happiness, all of it, is that, this thing right here, this right here is really, when I put this on, it is projecting visuals and it is projecting sound and audio for me to listen to. But the reality that it is transcribing, that it is hallucinating, let's say, is really just information. It's just bits. It's just zeros and ones, like the guy was saying, right? And so the idea with that some physicists say, like Donald Hoffman from UC Irvine, he goes into this a lot. He believes we're in a simulation. And his idea, now this goes from panpsychism to Advaita Vedanta, that a lot of these sages that really cracked the code and said, wow, we have meditated enough to where I now understand what reality is. Donald Hoffman of today, Ramana Maharshi, Shankara, a lot of ancient sages, they will tell you that reality is nothing but bits. Real reality
bits
around us. So what you're seeing on the screen when you're looking at me, what I'm seeing behind you, just like on a computer screen, it's just bits. It's just waves, sound waves, right? Until it's like that old question, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it make a sound? No, it did not. It did not make a sound. It did not make a sound, because sound is only something that is a wave that is then transcribed or hallucinated by a VR headset or our brain into something that we hear. So it produced a wave. So some people think that, some of the sages said that reality doesn't even exist. Reality only exists when you wake to reality. And when you open your eyes, the world comes into existence. And when you go back to sleep, the world vanishes. That is a very solipsistic idea, but that's what they said.
Where did the guys who wrote The Matrix, I mean, they're not guys anymore, but what was their inspiration? Like did they ever cite that?
All of this. Yeah, I've listened to them. They were very, very inspired by not just, Akira, one of the great animes of all time, and Ghost in the Shell. And they were very inspired also, and, Neuromancer with William Gibson, and even Snow Crash, right? The idea, the names, all of this had preceded them, but they were also very, very inspired. If you remember the scene when they go and they see the Oracle in the first Matrix, and there's the little kid in a monk robe, and he's bending the spoon, and he's like, the idea is, dude, that's all out of like Advaita Vedanta and ancient meditation, rishis, and all that. So all of that theory.
Interesting. Philosophy. I got to go back and watch Akira. I saw Akira like in the 90s when I was a kid. Like don't even remember what it was about. I have to go back. And do that again.
Yeah, that's one of the best, man. That one is amazing. I like it because, first off, it's the seminal, anime for me. It's like the greatest. But I like how it's a melding of really cyberpunk and fantasy, where you have this idea of telekinesis, very like almost very Stephen King, like with Firestarter and all that kind of a thing. So anyways, yeah, really, really cool. Really cool. I really recommend it. So yeah, so the way that, the whole simulation thing for me, kind of bringing this home, the reason that I think it's so powerful is entertaining to think about, but is our attachment to the stories in our heads, and our attachment to the reality that we see every day, is such a cause of suffering for people. And it's such a thing that not only does it cause suffering, it holds them back from even taking chances and striving to achieve their goals. And the more we can detach from what we're seeing, and if that means adopting a metaphor that, oh, this is all just a movie, or, oh, this is just a simulation, whatever it takes, whatever lever, I look at it like, here is the what we see and hear, the movie of life, and here is our like attachment to it. If we can get a crowbar in there and start to wedge that open a little more every day with meditation, with whatever it is, psychedelics, whatever it takes, reading, watching, study, the more we can do this, the less reactive we can become in life. And the less reactive we are in life, the happier we are.
I think that's really, I guess, all that it breaks down to, or the only piece that we could ever hope to have any sort of control over.
Totally. And if you look at, I'm reminded, you asked earlier, like, what is the point? It's nihilism. Why are we here? What are we doing? I don't think that there's unfortunately, an answer that is, this is it. I just feel like there's this consciousness. I think it's the wrong question, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like we're here experiencing this, and that's all there is. There is no, just experience it. And I'm always, reminded of like studies that people have done at the end of life. At the end of life, what is it that people almost universally say? You know what they say on their deathbeds? And I think that this is the key to life, is they list their regrets and they say, you know what their number one regret is?
No.
I wish I would not have worked so hard.
Oof. Yes, you told me this. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, because we live in a capitalist society in which one of the great stories that we have is if you work hard enough, then you're going to achieve whatever, and that's when you'll attain happiness. And you won't.
Interesting.
You won't. Yes, we need a certain amount of money. We need a certain amount. Achievements are good. But at the end of the day, if we're waiting and we're forestalling our happiness until we get to this, dude, it's just another work hard, and you'll go to heaven. It's just another one of those stories that were told to slaves so they would work hard and quit thinking that, this life is supposed to be about happiness. No, it's not supposed to be about happiness. You're a slave. You need to work hard and then maybe you'll achieve it. Let's never forget that biblical stories were an agrarian, technology to control labor and slaves to get out there and work the fields.
Oh, that's wild. That's wild. How do you feel about the Stoic philosophy? Do you get down on any of that stuff?
Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, those things like that. Yes, I do. I like some of it. Some of it I think is absolutely amazing. For me, it's more of the Zen and exactly what we're talking about. Detach from the story. Gain awareness that you have this thing in your mind that is always telling you stories that is going to do nothing but make you miserable. That's its job. So the more you can detach from that, the happier and more joyful you're going to be.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you think about Stoicism? Do you like it?
I like Stoicism. I kind of feel as though it's like when we're looking purely at like the fully Eastern version that then necks down into, what we were just talking about, I find that it gets very nihilistic and it kind of goes dark a little bit. But I feel like Stoicism has a little bit of a romantic kind of storyline that's relatable. Mm-hmm. So, but it gets you closer to what you're talking about, detachment. And I guess it's just like kind of like the European version or the Western version versus the Eastern version, where Zen is more along the lines of the Eastern version of the same concept. But, you know, that goes back to what we've been talking about a lot too. It's just like the cultural differentials to where it's all the same stuff. It's just coming from a different, you know, through a different filter because it's all a simulation because it's not real.
Right? Yeah, I think Jesse, that's why I love like the Zen type, you know, Hindu philosophies, is because to me, I see them as saying exactly the same thing as simulation theory. It's that the world does not exist. It is an illusion. It is Maya. And at the
Maya, yeah.
base, it's Maya. It's all, that's what the program is. And it is our conscious, it is our minds and our brains that are creating everything just based on data. And for me, yeah, I take it a step further where Advaita Vedanta teaches that we're all in a dream. And just like in a dream, you're not real, I'm not real, none of it's real. None of it's real. You know, Ramana Maharshi, one of the great rishis from India, he was very much of the NPC theory of simulation, where he was like, there is no free will. All you can do is detach. You have free will to detach your attention from the simulation. And that is where you will find true bliss, because your true nature is only when we come into our brains and we go out and we externalize into the world, that then we believe that we are the body. We forget that we are the universal consciousness that is infinite and unbounded. In this body, we're trapped in a body, so it creates suffering. So the idea for him was detach from reality, go inward, and then you will experience true joy, because that's who you really are. But it's heavy. It's fucking heavy now. But it's cool because it's all the same thing. It's all simulation theory, just in a different, you know, context.
And what's really interesting is like psychedelics and, you know, just do drugs, you know, and that goes back to the book, the Stephen Kotler book that you told me about, the Chasing Fire or
Oh, yes. Yeah. Stealing Fire.
Stealing Fire. It's all like ecstasy is like a point of entry. It's like you have like when you have these conversations, you could like make the funny joke of like, oh, this is like stoner combo. But like it is. And the reason why it is because when you're in those states, those ecstatic states, you know, the nonsense or the non-valuable information kind of drops and you're able to see it and feel it clearly.
Feel it. Feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you
then
experience that ecstatic
yeah.
state. I think, you know, final note, I think what it's important to remember that, you know, there was a tremendous amount of, you know, in these ecstatic states from ancient Greece to ancient everything, that there was these experiences where you got to experience this unification with everything of the world, where all the stories drop and you're just like, whoa, right? It's beyond words. And also, we have to understand, just like in that Netflix series, How to Change Your Mind, amazing series, definitely recommend it. When they delve into, it's all about psychedelics and how to change your mind and the modern movement. But when they delve into, you know, using psilocybin, they talked about how the Catholic Church, when they went over to South America and they realized that they were using in these ceremonies, they were using psilocybin mushrooms, and they were calling it like, you know, the flesh of God. And it was so close to the ritual that is the Eucharist, that they were like, we're banning this. So we got to ban this, because we need to make sure that the only vehicle through which human beings can experience those ecstatic states, the only way is through us. You got to walk through our door and you got to pay our tithing. You can't experience this without a priest.
I mean, while it functioned as a negative effect on humanity, pretty forward thinking of those folks, you know?
Oh, it's a
to be,
control. It's a control
yeah,
mechanism. Yeah. So genius. We're going to control it
super genius.
all.
Super genius, but
So it's
like by experiencing the ecstasy and saying, "Oh wow, this is too good for everybody. This should not be accessible to the Gen Pop." It's very very
and
wild.
that's where I think when people have resistance to the idea of these ecstatic states, like they were talking about in the transformational, power of ecstatic states, when people have resistance to them and prejudice against them, they have to realize that the genesis of that thinking lies in religious programming.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? When
No,
people are against it, they don't even know why they're against it. They're against it because they were programmed to be against it. And it's only
yeah,
now
and
that we're
then
starting to pull that lid off and say, no, no, no. This is the birthright of all humanity. Right? Anyways, yeah, this was a good one, man. I'm sure we're going to
yeah,
keep talking about this one. This is a really good one, man. So
absolutely.
let me ask you something, man. What have you been into? Any carve out recommendations for people? Like, what have you been doing? Reading anything? Watching anything? Listening to
You know
anything?
what? Uh right now I'm watching. Did you ever watch the show Vikings on Netflix?
Oh my god, dude! Yes,
I'm doing
yeah,
that. I know I'm late to the
really,
party. But I really what I'm really enjoying is the parallels of how it kind of plays into what you were just saying. Um, like the Danish infiltration of England at that time, and England wasn't completely formatted, and like the Northmen, and like the exchange of culture, and how Christianity kind of stomped out their belief. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like stomped it out, and like, but they were just regular people trying to, you know, curate the ability to eat and like live, and just how history favors the one, the victors. History favors the victors,
yeah.
and that system kind of played out. But really, really awesome show. Did not know that.
Yeah, dude, the history of that, and they did psychedelics in there too, man. It was awesome. That
Yes,
show was,
yes.
yeah, right. That's cool. And you see, have they gone into France yet and become the Normans and all that?
Yeah, so right now I'm dealing with the betrayal of Rollo of his brother. He's now your Grace.
Dude, do you know what's wild about this is that, I lived in Sicily. I lived in the chambers of a hunting palace, right? That was built. This street that I lived on was built in 1100 for for one of the Normans conquered Sicily. Okay.
Uh,
And one of them, they were dueling, I think, cousins, where one built a cathedral in Monreale, which is on the mountain top or the base of the mountain. And below in the valley on the sea is Palermo. And so they're adjacent to each other. And they had a rivalry to build who would build the better cathedral. And so my ancestors were built that cathedral, Il Duomo di Monreale, and that's where I live, man. And it's so cool because being an American, I didn't freaking know any of that. I didn't know history. It was only, thank God, I got to see the Vikings. And then when I went there,
yeah,
I knew what the Normans were. I knew the story. I was like, oh my gosh. So cool. So cool.
it's really
Yeah.
interesting. Really interesting.
Really
Yeah, so that's what I'm
interesting,
in.
dude.
That's what I'm into right now.
That's so cool, man. I am my recommendation for you, for everybody, is one of my favorite books ever. I probably read it like 5 times. It was by Blake Crouch, and it's called Dark Matter, and the book is amazing. And they just made a series about it and it's on Apple TV. And guess what the story is about?
What?
Schrodinger's cat.
Oh wow, yeah. The next time you're gonna have to explain that to me. I don't understand
Mm-hmm.
that.
He goes into the idea. I'll explain to you right now. The idea of Schrodinger's cats is if you have a box and inside of the box is a cat, is the cat alive or dead? Schrodinger said,
Yeah.
per quantum theory, it's both. It's both alive and dead until you open it, and then the observer, quantum states do not solidify, they occupy. That's what a wave is, right? So you have this, they can be alive and dead at the same time. We're going to have to go into this with the double slit experiment and all this.
Because I'm already like, I don't know. Is he dead or is he alive?
And this is reality.
Box.
Jesse, this is reality. This is what quantum computing is all about. So we'll talk about this on another complete episode, and we'll go into quantum computing and all that. Because I don't know if you know this, but I'm a quantum physicist. So
I don't know that.
I'm joking.
Wait. Joking. I want you to. What's the name of the PBS show? You mentioned it. You mentioned it a few weeks ago, and I've been
PBS Space Time.
I want to watch that because I want to brush up a little bit deeper on physics.
Okay.
And, because I don't have a good enough grasp. I get lost a lot.
Yes, and watch PBS Space Time double slit experiment. That is the one to watch. The beauty of it, you can watch it again and again. And for someone like me, who's not a physicist but wants to understand these things, it was so powerful because you watch it again, and then the repetition, you finally go, after like the 30th time, you go, I kind of think I understand what they're talking about,
All right. Okay.
So yeah. Okay. So then, but yes, watch the double slit experiment.
Where do I find it? YouTube, or like, is it on
YouTube? PBS Space Time, and then watch Dark Matter. Dark Matter is so freaking good, man. It's so good.
Cool.
All right, brother. Let's do it again next week.